In any cult, you will have crisis. You will have a sudden ecological or social phenomena that needs immediate attention. And so we'll explore here some of the strategies for preventing and responding. Dealing with fire, a lake and bathing area that's hooked to a fire pump that can be that's electric and linked to batteries, etc. So it's not dependent on grid power being on, is very good. Also, just a tremendous amount of focus on if particularly the model for concrete semi-underground buildings or shipping containers, they don't catch fire. Either a well or water mains is maintained as a secondary source. A drone camera and or mounted pole camera I would think a mounted pole would be better, can bring real-time images to common areas of the community in just kind of a monitoring center. Emergency fire hoses and a grid of 2-inch buried PVC pipes can be run roughly every 200 meters throughout the property with spigots so that you can bring water rapidly to an area. An additional layer of fire suppressant sprinklers can keep the forest damp or help put out a fire. We can assess the risk in a given area, with how big of an issue it is. But if you get news that a fire has erupted in a neighboring valley or something like that, you can turn on the fire suppression sprinklers so that everything is incredibly wet by the time the fire reaches the border of the community. Protocols: as soon as anyone sees a fire, they punch the emergency button on the app, capture the data, and submit. Every individual is given a yearly lesson in safety that includes physical demonstration of unrolling a hose. We did some of that in school, but I don't have a clue how to respond to a fire in my particular community. And maybe out on some public announcement somewhere, but that's part of the problem with getting so big that you don't even know your neighbors. Every individual learns to distinguish different kinds of fire and how to respond, an oil fire, etc., versus a wood fire. A fire extinguisher of appropriate size is kept in every vehicle, every home, every kitchen, and every public area. Fire retardant gear is kept on site where anyone can access it, including masks to protect against smoke. If you've got smoke masks and heat-protected suits, that allows you to rescue anyone and get close to the fire. This is 10 times better than anything that I've personally experienced in the larger cult. Violence. All physical violence first emerges as psychological violence. And psychological violence emerges out of invisibility. Because when something was really important to person number A, and person number B is ignorant or dishonors that out of a sociopathic impulse, then person A experiences pain as what they honor is violated, either physically, emotionally, sexually, etc. And so then there's when someone refuses to honor the psychological pain, there's a transference into physical pain, because physical pain is a shared language. If no one will listen to the amount of pain necessary to actively shoot or want to hurt someone, it's the problem of the cult, because everyone wants to be heard if given a chance to do so without shame and without punishment. So prevention, most of this just comes in the 1,000% increase in quality shared intimacy by spending quality time together. Anytime anyone sees a disaster forming through the facial expression of psychology or body language, anyone can press the panic button on the app, share data, and ask for a support circle. People do not need guns and police and that for the most part. These are incompetent responses to a psychologically illiterate culture. People need empathy and to understand the psychological forces that are not being honored by either the person who's carrying them or the larger community. When support arrives, all people will ask to participate in the circle, and everyone that's part of the community can be trained in circling, the art of holding space for intense, delicate feelings, so that they can be honored without having to erupt into violence. The biggest challenge around this would be the visitors who have not received training, and I think it's important to require visitors of the community to do, at least an hour's worth of basic training to be worthy of such a competent, trust-based community before entering. They will benefit dramatically. And I think people who prioritize attuning to the community culture should be prioritized in their access to the community, and people that do not, through not taking courses. The courses don't have to be expensive. They could be free. They could be online and question-based, and children within the community could be given the task of assessing different visitors' readiness to engage in certain activities by assessing their psychological maturity. But everyone wins when the standards are raised as part of entry. Another important protocol is the camera, which can be brought to bear as quickly as possible in any situation so that there can be more learning and also accountability. Guns are not allowed in the community. Generally speaking, I think that's a good protocol. It's probably not a good idea to build a community in an area where the surrounding people are incompetent to the level where they risk, raping and murdering community members. Part of a 10X community is, choosing where to live. Repairing violence, trauma, and distrust. So first, the aggressor is supported, cared for, and helped to understand their original wound, what they are passing on to their victim, and they're given support to pass through the chaos and uncertainty. An aggressor that has formed an identity around internalizing the abuser, an aggressor that has passed, that's formed an identity that was shaped by their original abuser, has to go through a void, has to enter the chaos of the unknown on their journey towards, integration and a new identity, and they need support, for such a vulnerable journey. The victim is simultaneously separated from the abuser, encircled, and given the support to not need to change their identity to internalize the abuser's identity. The issue is monitored on the app in a simmering tension area. Everyone in a close-knit community knows where the tensions are. So and so has separated from so and is now becoming another person's lover. If you have half a brain and a little bit of psychological training, and you see tight faces and tones and inconsistent behavior, that's a simmering situation. And so the rate of simmering can be measured by each of the participants, number one, and confirmed by the observers. If a participant is in denial and says, "Oh, no big deal, I'm not a jealous person," but they're volatile as hell and people around them notice it, then, if the majority of people around them say that this is an 8 out of 10 experience of, uncontained energy for this person and they're in denial, which makes it far more dangerous, that can be brought into a circle until it comes out and the person isn't in denial and isn't shamed for it. So this is an incredible intelligence that is simply not available anywhere in the cult that I've experienced, anywhere in the world, frankly. Earthquake. In areas where the earthquakes are present and common, 3 principles and protocols apply. Preventing unnecessary time, stuff during an earthquake, modeling out what can happen and preparing for that. And ensuring comfort in some days of independence from outside. If, like, for example, the fire hose, pipes are broken during the earthquake and things like that. In the model, you can prepare for, 5 days of chaos after an earthquake. There's various strategies. As the community is built, all core basic needs should be available off the grid. A 2-week supply of emergency rations can be kept. This is less relevant if you have a community garden. Community gardens, a pumpkin doesn't get damaged in an earthquake. The delivery van and the road and the bridge to bring the pumpkin from China to the community may get damaged, but the pumpkin itself survives the earthquake just fine. A satellite internet connection is valuable to not be dependent on cables. Starlink is working on that, so that should be available. And a yearly update on what to do with an earthquake, and developing some protocols. Technological meltdown and technological terrorism that comes from virus hacking and the like. I do think it's something that, for example, the power grid of the community, could be hacked via the internet connection. It's good to be mindful of. But the wonderful thing about having competent small groups that know how everything is built, is the batteries are there. And so if perchance the computer shut down, you just unscrew the boxes of the power walls and the like and connect to the positive and negative of the positive and negative charge. And that's also the benefit, I think, of having people on site, so that you're not having to compete with the rest of the cult who's all calling an electrician right at the same time. There aren't enough electricians. But when your electrician is your community member, well, they're only there for you. There's also, so if we look at redundancy, for virus attacks, all essential water and electrical needs are met offline. Core medicine that keeps well should be stored in 6-week quantities. Someone in the community has the role of attending to this strategy and updating the community. An emergency announcement system is placed over loudspeakers within the community if phones are not working. Servers for the community app and data are protected by a firewall. A yearly presentation on just how to manage viruses and responses can help people have better electronic hygiene. All viruses or specific suspicious activity can be investigated by someone in the community. All community devices are regularly cleaned by that person who can scan for viruses and things and make sure that people have the best safety protocols on all the devices. There's also a huge luxury. You know, I don't like having to go on YouTube and find who's the expert and then listen to 3 experts and hear how they disagree and then do this and do this to make my phone safe. You know, but what a luxury to have someone in the community that's interested in that. An emergency fund that meets all survival needs in the community for 3 months is stored in 4 different ways. Bitcoin, 15%, PayPal, 5%, a stable bank, 64%, and cash in different physical, in 3 different physical safes that are kind of known to the person responsible for that in the community of 6%. Radiation response, considering the low risk of nuclear war, the following steps are considered and are well above average. Potassium iodide tablets are kept on site for all. Fire prevention masks double as radiation masks. Anyone who wants one can buy more than the 20 masks kept on site. And when joining the community, a one-time introductory, to how radiation in different nearby places, if there's, you think of the nearest nuclear power plant or the nearest city that could be subject to a dirty bomb explosion, and what would be the protocol. Something like this gets maybe, 15 minutes of a one-time, protocol when joining the community. Epidemic and viruses are tremendously a place that can function off-grid and isolated is tremendously protected in the case of an epidemic or virus. And it is considered by many to be the most problematic in terms of for mass death. The goal would be that a partition so that if the broader population carries an infectious disease, the community can stay disengaged for up to 3 months as vaccines and medicines are developed. And the ability to detect on-site symptoms and screen for disease, the ability to treat, isolate contagious outbreaks on the community within the community. So strategy, the destruction, isolation of animals that pose a threat to the community's health, and having the animals stay on site within the fenced area helps a lot with that. Basic screening of fever symptoms for any visitors in the check-in process. Alerts sent on the app to look for specific symptoms and report any symptoms that develop in community members. So that people can be aware of the first child that gets sick, and if someone else's child gets sick, then we know it's a virus, moving through the community, and we know it by the second child, and we can start looking at it. Have either a sterilizer or tester of outside foods and outside bodies. One person has the primary role of looking after community health in these types of things and staying up to speed. This is also a great challenge to grow and have skills. An isolation area for up to 10 people is ready to be enacted. This could be an emergency tent or some other method that allows sick members of the community to stay in the community and receive care via, caregivers in hazmat suits, et cetera, with staying isolated. And there's a couple of more protocols, but this is truly a 1,000% more thoughtful and better with very little expense. What I talked about there, we're talking about less than $1,000 a person, maybe let's just say $1,000 to $1,500 per person for all of the benefits outlined there. It's just an incredible return on investment.